Everyone's got a budget, and I think there are places that you don't want to scrimp, and then there are places where I think you can save a lot of money. Hi, I'm Rebecca Constable, and this is Behind the Design. So since you were last here, we actually have swapped the kids' rooms around, and we've turned what used to be our youngest son's room into our office/guest room. And that space has been totally transformed. We've got new carpets, painted, all new furniture, and it's kind of got a bit of a mid-century feel to it. It's supposed to kind of feel a little bit masculine, quite warm and cocooning, just a really lovely space to work in. But we've also got a brilliant sofa bed in there, which means it transforms into a really lovely guest room. And I've tried to make sure that everything in there works really well for the office, but then when we have guests to stay, it works really well for guests as well. So they've got somewhere to put their clothes, somewhere to like pop a drink, just to make it a really, nice experience for them. In the kitchen, we have added some cushions to our banquette seating, which runs along our dining table. We did the extension here about 4 years ago, but I didn't get around to picking out fabrics, and we also slightly ran out of money, and the kids were also really small, so I just thought they were going to destroy any kind of soft furnishing I put there. So 4 years later, we finally put in cushions. We used Harlequin fabrics that are really robust and fit for family life, and we've got 3 kind of long seat cushions, and then I've used 2 other fabrics to do scatter cushions along the back to add a bit of pattern and colour, and also just so it's a little bit more comfortable to sit back on. When we redid this space, I wanted to make sure it worked as best for our family as possible. And what I decided to do was to take a little bit of space from the kitchen and use that for a pantry, so we could store all our dried goods. And then on the other side, we've used that space for a downstairs toilet and also a sort of tiny cloakroom. It's not really a cloakroom, it's like a rack where we can hang our coats and we can put all our shoes. But for me, there was no point in creating this big, beautiful kitchen if I was then going to end up with just a load of coats piled up in the hallway, just cluttering up space. So I'd rather take a little bit of space away from our kitchen to create super functional pockets of space where we can make sure that we can put all our stuff away, the kids can use the toilet downstairs, where we can stuff all our like dried goods and pile it all up at Christmas. For me, it's definitely worth the trade-off. Having flexible spaces is kind of what I've tried to do in every single room. Like, we live in London, space is at a premium, and although we have a lovely sized house and we're incredibly fortunate, there's 5 of us here and it does really need to work very hard. So that office/spare room, it has to do both jobs really, really well. In the kitchen, this is obviously where we eat and where we cook, but it's also where the kids do arts and crafts. So the banquette seating has to have space for all of their papers and paints and all that kind of stuff. So I've tried to make sure that every room in our house is as functional as possible. The other space that works really, really hard in this house is mine and my husband's bathroom. It also doubles up as our laundry room. And I wanted to create this really sort of relaxing, quite spoiling kind of sanctuary for us, which I think I've achieved. But it's also our laundry room. It's where our washer, our dryer is. It's where all our cleaning products are kept. And we've also got built-in laundry racks to kind of make that space work really hard as well. I think when you speak to a builder and you tell a builder what you plan to do, they will often tell you it's not a good idea or it's not robust enough. And I think you have to sort of stick to your guns and believe in your vision. And that was certainly the case in our kitchen. I decided to go for a quartzite stone top, which is a natural stone, and it is really, really tough. But people will tell you, oh, it can mark, it'll show stains, all that kind of stuff. And I just think it's so lovely having a natural stone. I don't mind stains. I think it just sort of shows the dynamics of family life, and we kind of embrace it. So I'm not looking for like bomb-proof materials. I want things that are going to be warm, that are interesting, that are character, and that are kind of going to age with you. The other thing we did in here is that we've got wooden flooring. Again, if we were going to be super, super practical, we probably would have done a ceramic tile or something like that. but I love the softness that wood brings. I love the idea of the whole ground floor having the same flooring and it just flowing from room to room. And it's just a little bit softer, especially on little heads and knees when they fall over. I mean, there's always going to be regrets. You're never going to get it 100% right the first time. One of my big regrets, and we're feeling this more and more now the kids are getting older, is that we didn't put a pocket door in between our living room and our kitchen. So we've got an open plan space downstairs, and I just wish now that we had the ability to totally shut that off. When we did our extension for this kitchen, our kids were quite young. They were 1, 3 and 5. So at that point, it was more like we wanted to have eyes on them most of the time. So open plan worked really well for us. So I could be in the kitchen, they could be in the living room, and I could see what was going on. But they grow really quickly. I know everyone says that, but they do. Time flies. And suddenly everybody kind of wants their own space a little bit more. And so I think just like talking to people who are in that next stage of parenthood or who have lived in that kind of space for longer and asking them, you know, would you do anything differently? You don't know what you don't know, but the more questions you ask, the more likely you're going to sort of uncover possible mistakes.
So maybe someone's watching this now, listening to you, thinking,
yes. Don't make the same mistake as me. So lighting is one of my favourite things to discuss. I love drawing lighting plans. I think they're really fun. I think you can get really creative with them. And lighting kind of sets the vibe of a space. It's either going to basically make or break a room. Even the most boring kind of plain room can look beautiful and interesting if you have brilliant lighting. And one of the key things for brilliant lighting is to ensure that you've just got layered lighting so that your main source of light isn't just your overhead light, because that can feel quite harsh, quite oppressive, a bit big brothery in the worst case scenario. You want to have kind of layered lighting. So you want wall light, you want lamps, you want to have different levels of lighting throughout your whole home. And the other thing with lighting is that you can have fun with it. The types of lamps you choose, the lampshades, the different fittings, it's another chance to add in texture and also just to kind of add in interest to your room. So even if your big light is never on, which mine are rarely ever on, I do still like a central pendant light in a living room because it becomes almost like a sculptural piece. It's something that draws your eye up into the ceiling, and I think that's another great role it plays. When you are planning lighting, it is so important that you think about it at the very beginning of your project, because trying to retrofit wall lights and add in other circuits is just an absolute nightmare. It's really messy and it's expensive. So if you can get it right from the beginning, then you're going to save yourself a world of trouble later. So think about where your task lighting needs to be. Where are you going to be cooking? Where are you going to be working? Where do you need to make sure you've got loads of light? Where do you like to sit and read a book? Make sure that you've got a wall light there or that there's a socket to plug a lamp into. Just thinking about how you're going to use that space. Are there any paintings that you want to have a picture light on? Can you wire that in? And, you know, worst case scenario, you can use wireless lights. They are brilliant. They are really helpful when you've sort of forgotten to plan in some lighting. However, you need to charge them loads. I would try to avoid relying on them. If you can plan it in from the beginning, that is ideal. I mean, in order to know where you're going to put your lighting, you kind of have to have a good idea of where everything is going to go in your space, where your seating is going to be, where your windows are going to be, because that's going to affect where you're going to have lighting. So for instance, in our snug, in our middle room, we knew there was going to be very little lighting because we had extended out the back and we lost that back window. We knew it was going to be a pretty dark room, so lighting was really, really key to plan in there. In our kitchen, we've got a huge skylight, which just like allows light to pour in. So we didn't have to worry too much about lighting there, just a little bit of mood lighting in the evening so that it kind of feels warm and relaxed. I think when you're spending a lot of money on a renovation, you want to ensure that you've got longevity in your plans and your designs. You want to make sure that A, you're going to like it in like 10 years time. You don't want to be redoing the whole thing. And you want to make sure that it's also going to work for your family in 10 years time. So having a think about what those needs are going to be as your family kind of evolves and changes is so important. So we always knew eventually that we were going to have all the kids on the top floor. And so we've we've kept the bedrooms pretty flexible. My son has just moved into his own room, and that was previously our office. And when we decorated it, we kind of kept it with a fairly neutral colour scheme with pops of colour, a built-in desk that we used when we were working in there as an office, but now my 9-year-old son uses it to do his homework. So always kind of thinking a few steps ahead and thinking, yes, this works for now, but will that work for us in 5 years' time? Could this turn into a children's room? Could this become an office? So just kind of thinking about that in the long run. And I think when it comes to design, go for things that you really love. Avoid trends. Trends come and go super quick, and often we're so influenced by what we see online, and so we start to think that that's our kind of style and that's something that we like, but it's actually just because the algorithm has fed us the same thing and it's basically convinced us that that's what we want. So I think really kind of honing in on what is your personal style, what do you like, what do you want to live with, what do you want to be surrounded with. We did our bathroom, our kids' bathroom 9 years ago when we moved into this house, and I still absolutely love it. It's a really kind of classic look, and although it needs a refresh this year because there's a few cracks in the walls and there's a little bit of chip paint, I wouldn't change anything design-wise, and it's worked really well for us in the long run. When we did that bathroom, we only had one child, but we thought we'll probably have a few more. So we made sure that we had a bath and a separate shower, so like 2 people can be washing at once, and made sure that there was just enough space for all the kids to have all their kind of gubbins in there. I think very few people probably have the money to do up their whole house in one go. And although in lots of ways that's simpler because it means you do all the messy bits all in one go, you do all the wiring, all that kind of hard work in one go, the disadvantage is you have to make a million decisions. You often get decision fatigue and you just pick stuff because you just need to make a decision on something and you often regret it later. Doing it stage by stage, although it can prolong the process and it means you're living with kind of perhaps, you know, a kitchen that you don't love or floorboards that are really drafty for a while, it allows you the time to work out how you're going to use that space. Once you've lived in a home for a while, you kind of get a better sense of how you as a family move around the house, how you use it, and you also have the time to think about how you want it to be in the future. And giving yourself the space and time to make those decisions, I think, is the best thing because you are less likely to make mistakes. You have the time to look for a bargain, to work out exactly what you want for that bathroom or that kitchen. And you can just let it grow organically. That's essentially what we did here. We didn't have the money to do the whole house when we moved in. So we kind of did the essentials. We did one bathroom because we wanted a bathroom that worked. And we did a bit of painting. And then that was basically it. And it was about 6 years later that we did the kitchen, and I'm so happy we waited because we would have made, I think, some not brilliant decisions back then had we decided to do it then. And being able to live in the space and actually the kids growing up a little bit more allowed us to just create a family home that is going to last us for now another 20 years. Everyone's got a budget. Well, almost everyone's got a budget. And I think sometimes actually our constraints can be our biggest advantages because they force us to make kind of really clever decisions. And actually you come up with a solution that you probably wouldn't have gone for had you had all the money in the world or had you had the biggest space possible. But actually you end up creating something that's really unique, that's clever and that works for you. And obviously budget is a big one. And I think there are places that you don't want to scrimp. And then there are places where I think you can save a lot of money. So for example, when it comes to basically the things you touch, like taps, handles, all your kind of sanitary ware and brassware, your shower heads, you do not want to scrimp on those. You want to go for things that are really well made, that are gonna last you a long time, because trying to switch those out later down the line is a total nightmare. You don't have the right holes in your counters or in your sink. It becomes very, very messy. And also those things work super, super hard. They are touched, you know, tens of hundreds of times a day if there's lots of you in the house. So you want them to last as long as possible. Where I don't think you need to spend a lot of money is things like your basins or your toilets, all that kind of porcelainware. Like, I think if you like the look of it and it's reasonably priced, then go for it. Like, it doesn't have to be the most expensive. You can't go that wrong with a porcelain toilet bowl. I think also when you're looking at your budget, think about the things that you really want to invest in now and what you can kind of live with for a while. So for instance, when we were doing our kitchen, we really wanted to go for these quartzite worktops. We knew that we wanted this guy, Louis Baker, to make the kitchen. And that is where we invested most of our money. We didn't care that we got kind of £25 stools from Habitat that I'm still sitting on now, even though they were supposed to be temporary. We didn't get a new dining table. We had old chairs, and we kind of left all those bits because those can be updated as you go along later down the line. The things that can't be changed is your kitchen or your countertops or your flooring. Those are the places in those sort of foundational elements that you want to invest your money. Anything that's sort of like furnishing fabrics, your furniture, all of that can be updated really easily later down the line. So don't rush with that. And then when it comes to those things, look at places like the sale room. So look for auctions, look for secondhand pieces, because they will add character and interest to your room. They're going to be better made and they're going to be cheaper than anything you can find on the high street. And they will last you a lifetime. And it's the kind of thing that you can pass down to your kids as well. So if you're renovating, my advice would be get really, really clear on how you want your spaces to look. Do a Pinterest board, really narrow down on what is the look you're going for, so that if you kind of start to go off track, you can come back to that and that can be like your guiding star. Then I would plan as much as you can before any of the work starts, because so often your builder will turn around to you and say, we need all the knobs for the cabinets by tomorrow, or we need to know exactly where all the lighting is going tomorrow. And if you're scrambling around late at night trying to work that out, you're going to make mistakes. So before any work starts, work out all of your lighting plans. Where are all those lights going to go? How are you going to light each room? And then also work out what are the key pieces that you need. Choose your paint colours beforehand. Choose those knobs that you want from Matilda Goad or whoever. And even start buying stuff, because you never know what lead times are like. You'll pick something or have your heart set on something and then suddenly it'll be out of stock. So start stockpiling stuff. Find a room, a garage, ask your neighbour if you can put stuff there, and just start stockpiling all the things you need for your renovation. When we did our kitchen, I knew that I wanted this hob from Barazza and it was from Italy, and so it was one of the first things we bought. It had a really long lead time. It was the middle of COVID, but I was determined that we were not going to let that delay anything. So get all your stuff so that you don't have any delays in your building work as well. So that would be my advice if you're starting a renovation. Plan, 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 and have fun with it. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to see the full tour of my home, click here. Hi Luxury Home Show. I'm Rebecca Constable, an interior designer, and this is my family home in London. Come on in.